After thinking about it for a minute or two, Mike decided that having a good cry was probably the best option he had. He didn't remember the last time he'd cried, because he was very drunk and he was on his knees in front of his girlfriend begging her not to leave his sorry drunken ass. But after 10 minutes of solid blubbing, he decided it was something he should do more often. He felt much better. The canal seemed to stretch on forever. There was no end. Whoever him was a bloody long way off. As Mike peered into the distance, he could see something hanging down. Hanging down from where, he did not know, because he couldn't see a ceiling, remember? As he neared it, he realised it was a ladder. He had a choice at least. He could stay in the gondola and take his chances with him, or he could try to get on the ladder and find out what was up there. After careful thought, he decided on option 2. He grabbed hold of the ladder as he passed underneath it and began to climb. For hours it seemed like. Just as he thought he might fall off in exhaustion, he arrived in what looked like an attic. It reminded him of the attic in his grandparents' house, only much, much bigger. Mike heaved himself through the hole and onto the firm floor of the attic. How is there a floor here when there's not a ceiling of the room below? Mike shook his head and decided not to think about it too much. Perhaps it was one of those situations that if you believed there was a floor, then it would be safe enough to walk on. The moment you stopped believing... He gave himself a little slap, put one foot in front of the other until he was far enough away from the hole with the ladder poking through it to stop thinking about the ceiling floor issue. He looked around him. The first thing he noticed was a kilt. It was an unusual tartan, not the usual red number that he associated with Scotland. This one was made up of a purple and pink plaid design. He thought it looked pretty cool. He'd always fancied he had the knees for a kilt, but had never worn one. He wasn't going to start now, so he moved away from the kilt and over towards a large tower of boxes. It seemed to go up forever, which was obviously not possible, but he couldn't see the top of it. Mike had an urge to push the tower of boxes. He resisted that urge, worried that the boxes might land in random places, like on top of his head. He moved away, and then ran quickly back, pushed the tower as fast as he could and ran in the opposite direction, shouting, "Timber!" as he ran. For a second he felt a joy he hadn't felt since he entered the strange jelly house, a childish freedom. Then a box hit him on his head and he lost consciousness. When he woke, he was sitting in a very small white room, his hands and feet tied together with a leather belt. It was his belt, he noticed. His trousers were round his ankles. He suddenly felt very vulnerable. Where the fuck am I? What the hell happened? And who tied me up? What the fuck do they want from me? All these questions flew through his mind. The room gave no answers, the walls blank and unhelpful. "Hello?" he called out. "Anyone there?" There was no answer to Mike's call. He stopped and thought about things for a moment. Did he really want whoever had tied him up, with his own belt, and left him in a strange room, with his trousers round his ankles, to know he was awake? Probably not. Probably too late now, though. Mike struggled a bit to see if he could loosen the belt, or slip a hand or foot free, something he'd seen done in 100 films he'd watched. Apparently, it's not as easy as it is in the movies. Bugger. He thought about having another good cry. That had made him feel better before. But now he thought it might put him in a more vulnerable position, should the person, or persons, who held him come in. There was a noise from outside. It sounded a bit like a cackle. There was an answering cackle. Mike wasn't best reassured. Then, through the doorway came 3 women Mike had never seen before. They appeared to be disguised as witches, pointy hats, broomsticks and all. Oh, and they were only 1 foot tall. Apart from that, everything normal here.
When shall we three? Isn't that a bit overused, dear?
Well, really, all your bubble and trouble, my dear. Mike watched the three tiny witches argue with each other for a moment and then coughed.
Sounds like you have a nasty cough, young man, one of the small hags said. You want to get some syrup for that? I've got some, said one of the other hags. It's no bloody wonder he's got a cough dressed like that, said the third.
Actually, Mike said, his face reddening as the three witches looked at him in the not wearing any trouser area. One of them nudged the other and smirked. Actually, I don't really have a cough. I was just trying to get your attention. I wonder if you could help get this belt off me.
Well, dearie, one of the hags said, I could try to magic it off you, but the last time I tried that near a young man's trouser department he couldn't sit down for a week. And come to think of it, we still haven't found that snake.